Welcome in, everyone, to the Coast to Coast podcast, emergency edition. You know why we do these. It's when news breaks, and we always try to get it to you as quickly as we are able. I'm your host, Joey Powell, Inside Carolina. On top of things, as always, as Harrison Ingram, a transfer from Stanford University, leaving the Cardinal, going from one coast to this coast, which makes it perfect for this show. We're brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt. With me, as always, Sherrell McMillan, Sean Moran. Harrison Ingram, vitals 6'7", 230. He's from Dallas originally. Was a Pac-10 Freshman of the Year in 2022. Sherrell McMillan, I'm coming to you first, man. How did this develop for the Tar Heels and Hubert Davis and the staff?
Uh, Pretty much as soon as Ingram entered his name in the portal, I think he was someone of high interest to UNC. If you recall, Roy Williams offered him, recruited him in the class of 2021. And I think there's probably another step that was going to be taken in his recruitment, but COVID happened. So he took a visit to the painful Carolina loss, I think it was to Duke, the double overtime game or maybe it was just overtime. Anyway,
We don't
that
need to
one.
go further. Just,
Yeah,
just yeah.
that one. He was at that game for the unofficial visit. He got an offer on the visit, and like I said, I think had there been a normal spring evaluation period and summer evaluation period, UNC probably would have prioritized him a little more. But there was an end of everything once COVID happened, and a few months later he committed to Stanford. So played well at Stanford, obviously there under former UNC assistant Jared Haas, Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. All his numbers kind of dipped as for his sophomore season, and it seems like he just wanted a fresh start outside of Stanford because they have struggled the last couple of years. And as I said, as soon as his name was in the portal, he was an immediate contact for UNC. I think they love his basketball IQ, his passing ability, and just in general we always talk about fit and how much they vet people for fit, for system fit, for culture fit, for family fit, for all those things. And he was a match in all three of them. So they started talking. Uh, like I said, the night of, he entered the portal a couple weeks ago. He had a conversation with Sean May, had a conversation with Hubert Davis, multiple conversations. They had an in-home visit this last Sunday, last Saturday, so a week ago, and from there set up an official visit. He was on campus for about 24 25 hours Wednesday to Thursday. I guess the visit went really really well because here we are today with an announcement 2 days later.
And just to give some of the stats from Harrison Ingram, averaged 10.5 points, just under 40% from the field, 31% from three, but 6 rebounds and 3.5 assists a game. For a guy at his position, you like those assist numbers. And obviously North Carolina values players that can rebound from every position. Sean, the first question I want to ask you is Harrison Ingram a 4-3 or a 3-4? Because I know that's a question a lot of folks around the Inside Carolina subscriber base have been asking. I may have even posed that to you off the air one time, but I want to ask you first before we get into the analysis of his game: 3-4 or 4-3?
There you go. Sorry about that. I think he mostly I'd say a 3-4. I would lean that. He played a lot of three at Stanford, given their two bigs. But I think whether it's a 3-4 or 4-3, he has the size. He has the size to play either, and especially to go up the power forward. But I think unlike a lot of the normal 3-4, 4-3s that we're discussing, I think he loves to have the ball in his hands. I think point forward has been used to describe him in AAU. He pretty much he was the point guard. Whether he was playing up a year as a 16-year-old on the 17-year-old team, and then didn't get as much with COVID. But I think I go 3-4, but put an asterisk noting that he loves having the ball in his hands and is more of a point forward than a traditional 3-4, 4-3.
So, how does Ingram make North Carolina better? What have you seen in his game? I know you're probably going to have a video review up sometime soon. I'm assuming for Inside Carolina, but what have you seen in his game that instantly makes this roster for Hubert Davis and his staff better?
I think it's for him it's not as easy to slot in and say, hey, this is how he's gonna fit into Hubert Davis's offense or defense because he's more I think you have to be creative with how he's utilized. But the one thing that he's going to help with is just ball movement and getting guys open looks or finding guys for open looks, especially the shooters that they're putting on the team to go with RJ Davis or Armando down low. Sherrell mentioned his assist numbers earlier, and I think his assist percentage at Stanford last year was a little bit higher than Kobe White's going back to 2019, and I think possibly the highest since Kendall Marshall. Although Kendall would obviously blew everybody out of the water, but I think that just goes to show, hey, he's a very willing passer. He's a strong passer, has good vision. He hits guys where they need to be hit. And once again, I think this goes back to his high school days of playing point guard. And I was able to watch him both the summer of 2018 at the Pangos All-American camp, where his dad actually asked, do you think he's good enough to play at UNC at that point in time? And then 2019, where he had an incredible, it was either the semifinal or final game at one of the Adidas tournaments. And he started off getting his teammates involved before he took over scoring. So the passing has always been natural to him. And he's not going to be a guy that is trying to take 15, 20 shots a game. So the passing, I'd say, is easily the main quality that will help UNC right off the bat.
I want to stay here for a second, Sean. North Carolina fans may see him, and I know you love player comps, and I say that sarcastically, may see him in a little bit in the Theo Pinson mold. Is that accurate or not?
In terms of the passing and the size, but not the athleticism. Definitely not. But I think in terms of the size and being able to handle the ball at that 3 position, I think that makes a lot of sense. Not the strongest of outside shooters as well, but I think Theo is a much better slasher attacker, where Ingram is a little bit more methodical when it comes to that.
For a guy that doesn't shoot as well from the perimeter, you know, he does have the ability to score in different ways. Give us some ideas of what those look like.
Well, yeah, I think his numbers, whether it's 3-point shooting or you can look at his free throw shooting, has was average at best, maybe a little subpar. Freshman year was not great as a sophomore. So the shooting is definitely a concern. It's not like he can't shoot. He had 30. His numbers were pretty much similar both years, hitting around 31 each year, and he can hit from deep. But I think that freshman year teams would play off him a little bit. We saw what how that has bogged down UNC's offense the past 2 years, but he can hit them. He did have a good synergy number this year on spot up. So I do think there's some tweaks that can raise the percentage. We're not talking like a Cormac Ryan up to maybe 40, but maybe up to 35%, I think would be realistic. In terms of what he likes to do, as I said, methodical pick and roll, good vision, but he's not kind of a quick ball mover. He likes to probe the defense. If he's catching on the wing, he's going to try to use his size to almost back you down, similar to Pete Nance, although a little bit more, I'd say, dangerous doing that, because he does have definitely more agility in terms of that. So not a direct comparison, but he's going to try to use his size, back you down, and get a shot in the mid range at the rim or a kick out, or use the pick and roll coming off of that. But he's not a guy that's going to blow by you off of first step or one move. So it is a little more methodical.
Yeah, Sean, you were talking about the Theo Pinson thing, or I guess Joey was, and then the assist rates. I'm just looking back through Ken Palm numbers, and one thing that people like to track is assist rate. I think you harped on it a little bit before, Sean. That's basically like how many assists an individual accounts for while they're on the court. So in conference play, which is probably a better sample, Theo Pinson his senior year, which the year he played a lot of point forward, his assist rate was 27.4. And for Ingram last year, he was at 28.8 in conference only stats. So that's really good. You consider how well of a passer Pinson was that year, how much he had the ball in his hands, and Ingram's rate is a little bit higher. I think another thing you see is they were both really good rebounders. You look at their offensive rebound percentage and defensive rebound percentages, and they're not dissimilar. Pinson offensive rebound was at 6.7, which is top 25 in the conference that year. Defensive percentage was 18.5, which was top 20 in the conference that year. And then you look at Ingram, he was at 9.5 offense, top 10 in the Pac-12 last year, and defensive rebounding was at 18.4, which was top 12 in the Pac-12 last year. So there are some similarities. I think the main deficit for Ingram is just his shooting percentages. I would say they are below average in each range: free throw, field goal, and 3-point percentage. And if I'm stepping on your toes, Joey, with the question you might ask, I apologize, but I do think the North Carolina staff's thought is that having RJ Davis and having Armando Bacot will open things up for him a little bit more, and that some of the shots that UNC missed last year that were open, that were created by others, that Ingram is capable of knocking them down. He just didn't at Stanford because he was higher up on the scouting report. Now, whether or not that's not going to happen, we'll see. But I think that's kind of what the UNC staff is banking on.
I want to go back to something we talked about with the Cormac Ryan show the other night. Sean, we harped on North Carolina's ability for the ball to be stuck at times this past year. If you look back the season before last, when they were at their best, it's because Brady Manick was really good at keeping the ball moving and keeping things flowing. We talked about with Cormac Ryan the other night, his ability to pass and how it might be a little bit of an underrated part of his game. We just got done talking about with Harrison Ingram the fact that he's averaging 3.5 assists per game, and Sherrell gave you the way that breaks out as far as ranking in conference. I think what North Carolina's essentially done with these last two transfers is made a better passing team. And if you've got a team that moves the ball better, it should be that rising tide that lifts all ships, right? To where it should improve everybody else's field goal percentage, if nothing else, because they're getting better shots. Sean, do you feel like that's a logical assumption to make, or am I stretching? Is that just a bridge too far?
No, I mean, I think that was a big issue. I mean, a tremendous issue this year from just the ball not moving. I think the one concern with Ingram is that the ball doesn't move quickly because, as I said, he does like to probe. But once again, I think he's really a pass first type of guy. Over the last 10 Pac-12 games, he scored every game was between 11 to 15. So I think from a ceiling, that's what you're gonna like in that range is what you're gonna get. But once again, from a passing perspective, I think especially who they're putting around him is huge because if you're kicking out, as we saw this year, to guys that aren't true threats, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But if you have RJ, Ryan, Withers, and once again, Dunn, etc., I think that'll make everybody's lives easier by not only getting open shots but being able to hit those open shots. But once again, just we'll be curious to see how Ingram is fully utilized in this offense. In some of the Stanford games, he was pretty much on the wing, and it would take a while, and he probably wasn't put in the best situations at times where that did cause a lot of getting the ball in the wing, trying to back down, etc. So if they're able to almost use him as a secondary ball handler, free up RJ a little bit at times, I think that could be very helpful.
Sherrell, one of the things you've done a great job about doing since this portal season has opened, for lack of a better term, is helping folks understand the length of the process, the context. You said it really well the other night after the Cormac Ryan commitment. I'd like for you now to share, how do you feel like North Carolina has improved? Because this guy sees that they've improved based on what they've lost versus what they've brought in these last couple of days. Do you agree, or and if so, how? Or do you still feel like there's a long way to go? I recognize there are scholarships open, but if you wouldn't mind just dig into that a little bit for us.
Yeah, I kind of hesitate to do a progress report at this point. I think
It's not
if you,
Father's Day. That's fair.
yeah, if you talk about what they set out to do, I think you can kind of judge, on your own. They wanted to increase the team's basketball IQ. They wanted to become better at shooting. They wanted to add talent, and they wanted to improve the team's overall athletic profile. I think those were kind of what we gleaned and what we heard were the goals of the offseason. So I'll let individuals kind of judge that for themselves. But I do think the shooting shows up the most so far. That is definitely something that they had to improve upon. I think it's been said pretty much every podcast for the last 12 weeks now, maybe 20 weeks. I don't know. It all runs together.
North
That
Carolina can't shoot.
North Carolina was a historically bad shooting team from 3-point range last year. And so that just has improved with the way basketball is played. You're going to be taking a lot more of those shots, especially with the way that Hubert Davis has kind of styled his offense. And it's funny. I was looking at a box score from a random game in 2018, 20, the Cam Johnson, Luke May team, their senior year, that was the number 1 seed. And they beat the brakes off somebody by like 30 points, and they took 13 threes. And I'm just like, that is such a change just in the last 5 or 6 years, not just in how North Carolina operates, but how basketball operates. I can't tell you. I'm going to go look it up now. At some point today. That's probably the last time Carolina has taken 13 or less threes and won a game. I would imagine, just because that's not how they play. So I say all that to say is that the 3-point shot is integral to everything that really everybody in college basketball wants to do. So if you can't shoot, you can't push tempo. You can't really get Armando Bacot involved. It hurts your defense because you're always you're always playing transition defense. You never get a chance to set your defense. So a lot of it goes hand in hand, and it's kind of cyclical. So if you can shoot, that gives space for Armando Bacot, that opens up driving lanes, that gives you a chance to get back and set your defense, so you're not always on your heels, so to speak. So that's why I think it's really important that they've attacked that. But we'll see. The portal is open for another couple of weeks, and I don't think anyone should look at this as a final roster again until
I love you for that,
mid-June.
dude.
But no, I mean, because it's like we can't tell folks to be like, hey, don't get sad because they don't have any commitments right now because it's June, and then say, oh, okay, they've got 4 commitments, all is good.
Yeah.
We don't know that. We have to wait until June to see what the final roster is going to look like, because there still could be movement in and out. We just don't know with the way the portal works.
And I should have done a better job of asking that question, but I think more so, I just look at kind of the angst that was around folks even as little as a week ago, right? And now it's now people. Okay, there are 2 new guys that have added to the program since the last time.
And Joey, like, again, think about it. Jalen Withers committed. It's been 13 days now, or
He
something like
committed.
that.
He committed around Valentine's Day, I believe.
Yeah, it feels like it's been weeks and weeks and weeks, and I think it's barely been 2 weeks. So.
Yeah. All right. 2 more things, and I want to get out of here. Sherrell, some of the feedback we got from the show the other night about Cormac Ryan was that he's a guy that probably wouldn't mind jumping someone's ish in a huddle if need be, or in practice being able to be that vocal leader. How does Harrison Ingram fit maybe with personality to this team? I think that's one of the things folks are looking for is what are the intangibles? What are the other, I guess, the other skills that aren't necessarily basketball related that will help him acclimate himself to this locker room and to the roster that he's joining?
Well, he's probably the first player in the history of basketball to have Howard, UNC, Harvard, Stanford, and Purdue on his final list. So of those, I would say I really all of them have high academic reputations. So I think that tells you just about what they value. His family, his sister is going to be playing volleyball at Duke, a great school. So that tells you kind of what they value. So you know that you're getting a smart kid who's going to listen, who knows how to play the game. Just again, high basketball IQ. So I think you're getting that. One thing on a team, you don't want to have the same of everything. Like, I know people are like, oh man, it'd be amazing to have 13 Rasheed Wallaces or 13 Jerry Stackhouses, but
That's the only
you
exception is 13 Rasheed Wallace.
yeah, you don't really want that team. And I know people also say they want, oh, I would love 13 Marcus Pages. Like, yeah, but you don't really want that. You need a good blend of, you know, guys who maybe play to the edge of the whistle. Some people might call them jerks. Some people might call them other names, but you need some of those. And then you also need people who are calm and poised and, kind of stay even keeled. You also know people who are fun and relaxed. You need a good mix in the locker room. I think Ingram will help to add to that because, Ryan and Wojcik, we know are fiery guys. I think we know that Bacot and Davis can be, but they're kind of more even keeled. So you just want a good mix. We know that Wilcher is going to come in and be a fiery guy. I think High will come in and be a fiery guy. So I feel like they have a good mix. And Ingram probably is in that more even-keeled sense, but just because he's even-keeled doesn't mean he's not, a competitor. I think if you watched him play, you can see the competitiveness from him.
Last question, Sean. What do Harrison Ingram's initials spell?
I don't know what his middle name is. So
what are the initials that we know? Harrison Ingram. What does that spell?
Hi.
Hi, and yes, we want to make sure we say hi to our friends at Johnny T-Shirt before we get out of here. We're big fans of theirs. Appreciate them sponsoring this show, even an emergency edition. Be sure to go by and check them out. If you're in town for the Boston College Baseball Series, hit them up East Franklin Street in Chapel Hill. If not, check them out online, johnnytshirt.com. We're thankful for them and thankful for you guys for tuning into the show today. We appreciate Sherrell and Sean for bringing what they bring. Shout out to Tommy for producing us. This has been an emergency edition of the Coast to Coast podcast. Harrison Ingram, transfer from Stanford by way of Dallas, is going to be joining the Tar Heel basketball program. We'll talk to you next time, anytime there's news to break, and we will have our regular edition of the Coast to Coast coming to you very soon. Sherrell is out covering some prep ball, as are other 24/7 and IC correspondents. We'll have all of that breakdown for you as the live period wraps up this weekend. But until then, I am Joey Powell. Thanks for being a part of this show, and we will catch you next time on the Coast to Coast podcast here on InsideCarolina.com.